As entrepreneurs, we all have a reason why we chose to leave our 9 to 5 for an 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. I'm here to capture those stories of why we all hustle and grind for our companies. Cheryl, once a successful solopreneur in the jewelry design business, faced a daunting wake-up call one morning when she couldn't get out of bed due to excruciating pain. Misdiagnosed and brushed off by conventional medicine, she embarked on a journey to discover the root cause herself. Unveiling her autoimmune disease, Cheryl realized her relentless work ethic and unhealthy lifestyle were the culprits. Refusing to accept this as her fate, she dove into research, overhauled her diet, and pursued education in holistic health, resulting in an incredible transformation. Today, Cheryl is a beacon of hope for those battling chronic illnesses. With her superpower of finding holistic solutions, she empowers clients to reclaim their health and vitality. Through books, classes, coaching, and more, Cheryl inspires others to embrace the journey to wellness, proving that nothing is impossible when it comes to feeling great and living well. Well, Cheryl, awesome, amazing Cheryl. Thank you so much for being on the show today. I truly appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Anytime. So you've kind of got this interesting story, and I know that a lot of what you're doing, especially with health, really aligns with a lot of what I believe. And so first thing I'd want you to do, what's your ninja skill? What are you good at? What do you do?
My superpower is finding people's puzzle pieces so that they can heal themselves.
Interesting. So when you say that, is this like the first thing I think about when I hear puzzle is I think there's a part of me missing, or these other kind of phrases that we hear, the common phrases we hear. What do you mean by that? Like
Well,
as far as like what is
most
missing?
people don't realize that they have power over their body and that
Huh.
they actually can do things that will heal their body. But depending upon what's gone haywire, those
Hmm.
puzzle pieces are different for each person. And the key, I'm still looking for puzzle pieces. 11 years ago, I got fibromyalgia, but no one had a clue what it was. And I was
Mhm.
actually told to seek mental health.
Mhm.
Mental therapy because there was nothing wrong with me. And I went, that's ludicrous. Something went haywire with my body and I'm going to go find it. But now I help other people find what it was that went haywire in their body and then lead them to where their journey begins. And if they run into problems, I have all kinds of research. After 11 years of looking into my own health, right now I'm working on my lymph system.
Mhm.
I keep finding my own puzzle pieces, so I am a plethora of information to help other people find theirs.
Now, where do you find this information? Is this from like medical sources or others, like natural
All
medicine,
of
or
the
just
above. I
everything?
follow a
Okay.
lot of people. I am specifically following all the functional people. Functional medicine is different from conventional medicine in that they were trained in conventional medicine. But what was fascinating to me is they almost all got sick and couldn't help themselves. Or they had somebody that they loved very much in their life that got sick that they couldn't help. So they went on for additional training in functional medicine. And the difference is a functional doctor looks at the entire body, whereas a conventional doctor will go, you have bad liver tests, let's fix your liver, not realizing it's the number one cause of heart disease and it impacts every other organ in the body. We function as a complete unit. We don't function as individual pieces.
Mhm. And I think that's one thing. I worked in the pharmaceutical industry as a trainer, and that's one of the things that we learned is that the industries really incentivize doctors to use medications, and it's a big part of their education. But they get, and it's between 2 to 4 weeks worth of nutrition out of the amount of time that doctors in school is about 10 years or so. It's not a small amount of time to do this between a bachelor's, master's, MD plus med school plus residency. There's a lot of time you're spending on this, like 2 to 4 weeks out of almost a decade's worth of education that they get on nutrition. And for me, when I started a journey about 4 or 5 years ago on health and learning about the holistic medicine, like you're talking about natural medicine. And that was surprising to me that they're really, the food
Yeah.
that you eat is not taken into consideration. It's what medication can I
And
use?
yet you can heal yourself from the
Yeah.
inside out if you eat from what I call the pharmacy, FARMACY.
Love that. I'm gonna start using that. That's awesome. If you don't mind. That's really
Yes,
cool.
I'm the queen of the rainbow. I want you to eat every color of the rainbow because something happens when they get together in your body. They party and they create health.
Interesting. So now tell me, because for me, it's all about the backstory. So the premise for the show is there's a reason why we left our 9 to 5 for an 8 a.m. to 10 p.m.
Right.
And there's a level of passion that we have for what we do. And that's why I love working with entrepreneurs. I only work with entrepreneurs. I've worked with major corporations. They were great. I mean, I had a good experience from them. I love entrepreneurs because of that passion and that reason why you did it, what you came up with, and why you move forward. For you, you said you had fibromyalgia. What's your backstory to how you came to where you're at right now?
Actually, I was an entrepreneur. I had my own jewelry business. I
I
was designing jewelry for all the big box jewelers like Macy's and J.C. Penney and Amazon, and having the time of my life traveling all over the world, doing everything to be successful except practice self-care. And so my body started talking to me and I ignored it, went through my brain with the speed of light. And I have a joke that when the universe wants me to get something, first they poke me in the arm, then I get the NCIS slap, and finally the 2x4 comes down. Well, I didn't listen to the symptoms and the 2x4 came down. And one morning I woke up and I could not move. Everything in my body hurt. My head hurt, I had brain fog, all my body parts hurt. I was all puffy, I was inflamed, and I thought, okay, maybe this is the flu. So after 5 days, when it didn't start to subside at all, I started going through multiple tests with my conventional doctor. We ran through 5 rounds of tests and she called me and said, congratulations, there's nothing wrong with you. And I went, that's ludicrous. I'm going to go find it. And she said, you're not going to find anything. And I went, well, yeah, I will. And have a good life because I probably won't be back. And I dug in and I tripped into functional medicine. And at the time they were writing 19 different symposiums. And I listened to multiple doctors on all 19 and made notes. One was that I probably had toxic load. That made sense. I had no idea how much was toxic in my life. I didn't even understand what GMOs were or why I shouldn't be eating conventional food or what was in ultra processed food, which gives you nothing to function on. But that's where I started. And I eliminated hundreds of toxins literally from my life. There's a giant diet database in the sky called EWG. You can look up every product. And if your product's not there, you can look up every ingredient and start eliminating and replacing with less toxic things. And I changed my food completely. I started eating real food because that was intuitively made sense to me. And so it took me 5 years, but within 5 years, I no longer had any pain at all. And that was the point when I went on Medicare. I'm now 75, by the way, and feel better than I did in my 50s. I found my own functional doctor and she took me the rest of the way home back to wellness. And anybody can do it. We have the power. We just aren't told that we have the power. And you're right about doctors. They tend to give you 6 minutes for an appointment. And the first symptom that comes down the chute gets the pill. And you're on your way and you're on the way out the door going, wait, I didn't tell them about this, and this, because we never got there. I got the pill for the first thing I brought up and I was on my way. Well, if you start to follow what I call my 20 healthy habits, you can reverse them all. And you may not go all the way back to ground one, but I was never really particularly healthy. And now I'm functioning like a super healthy person. So, hey, I'll take it.
Absolutely. And I think that's one thing where from my experience, I believe that the medical industry, specifically with doctors are trying to do the best they can, but they're just not given the right tools. And they're
Correct.
working within a system, specifically with health insurance, where they have to have a certain number, just the economics of it, they have to go through quickly. And so I think that there's this, I want to make sure that, I'm not saying, doctors are terrible. No, they're not. I think they're trying
No,
to do the best thing.
they
They're just
really
not well
do
done.
want to do, but
Yeah. Yeah.
and I didn't know medical schools were actually in the beginning run by pharmaceutical
Oh,
companies.
yeah.
But that has always been I mean, I had so many like aha moments when I started my research.
Yeah.
It just all made sense. And even my functional doctor just went to a concierge method because she doesn't want to deal with the health insurance companies dictating how little time she can spend with her patients.
Yep. My mom was a psychologist and I kept watching her with billing and they would pay her an absurd amount of money and then just absurdly low amount of money. And then like a third of her standard fee, which was not high either. It was reasonable. But then what would happen is you could go back and go through the process of fighting it. I mean, you could go through that. It took forever. And it would cost you more in the long run to fight this thing than it would be just to say, all right, I accept whatever the hell you give me. So I've seen the other end of it, and it's not like we're just kind of spouting things forward. I've seen this happen.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it
No,
was,
my
yeah,
heart goes out to them.
yeah, yeah.
But
But I think with you made a really important point, because I'd like to go back to it with functional medicine doctors, and I want to talk a little bit about them because that's something that I've only recently become. I mean, we know naturopaths, we know, there's a bunch of different types of, um, healthcare professionals that are outside of the mainstream. But I specifically wanted to talk about functional medicine doctors because one thing that you said that I believe is important is they are trained like doctors.
right. They have, and they can prescribe pharmaceuticals.
Mhm.
That doesn't tend to be their first option. They'll try all the holistic approaches first, but if that doesn't work, they're not opposed to giving you the pharmaceutical. But pharmaceuticals only mitigate the symptoms, they don't cure. So if you are going to go on a pharmaceutical, do your research about all the things you can do to support your body so that you can heal while you're taking that medication, and then work out a plan to get off of it with your doctor.
And I felt it was
Because
really,
they all have downsides. All those pills have downsides.
it's a risk benefit analysis. And I think as far as any sort of medication we have, again, the pharmaceutical companies, there have been good things. I mean, there are some things that they do that have helped, but also we need to, instead of just blindly accepting it, we need to do a risk benefit thing on it. It's always interesting to me how many pharmaceutical ads I see, and how many different things they come up with to saying, here's a new disease and here's a way to treat it. And just the business models, understanding these are businesses. I mean, from an objective standpoint, They are there to make money. Understanding that the boards of companies have a fiduciary responsibility, legal responsibility to do what's in the best interest of the shareholders. And understanding that they can't have like a bunch of medications that are losing them money. A, they wouldn't be in business for long, but B, their shareholders could oust the board and put somebody in that's going to do what's in their best interest. And a lot of these folks are public. So just, I think there's a lot that's wrong with it. But anyway, I wanted to mention, just to get back to it, I wanted to mention what functional medicine doctors are.
Right.
They are MDs.
And
but
I
they
am
have
not
additional stuff.
anti-medicine. I just
Yes.
want you to own your own body.
Yes.
So whatever you're doing with your medical provider, still own it yourself and let them know you're doing that.
Yeah, exactly. And
there's no reason not to. They don't always like it in the beginning, but they will get into it with you if you are determined that you're going to own your own health. And nobody needs to give you permission to change your lifestyle habits.
Mm-hmm. But I felt that was important because there are a lot of people that like me, were kind of in that middle of the road where it's like, I understand that medical doctors have a specific training and they have a lot of training in some things. They're good at some things, but I want something else. And I think the functional medicine doctors are a good blend of both. They will use medications if they need to. Like, I'm a snowboarder. I'm not good at it. So I spend half the time on my backside going down the hill. So it's one of those things. So I don't mind taking like ibuprofen or some sort of medication when I know that it's masking a symptom because I did something super stupid.
Yeah, I don't take any over-the-counter medicine.
No?
If I have pain, I take curcumin, which is the active ingredient from turmeric. And it not only does it do all kinds of good for the body, but it also takes care of pain and reduces inflammation. So it's like a miracle.
Interesting. See, I learned something new today. See, now I think that
whereas ibuprofen aggravates your stomach, and your stomach is the seat of your health. So aspirin, ibuprofen, Tylenol. I was allergic to all those things. I took Tylenol. Oh my God, is that hard on your liver? No more Tylenol for this girl.
Well, one of the things I learned about Tylenol is that it has a 48-hour half-life. And for people that don't know what that means that half the dose you just took is in your body 2 days later. And its toxic level is 3,000 milligrams. It is really dangerous. I mean, it's not one of those things, not only is it hard on your liver, just the toxicity level is really high. So if I took 1,500 milligrams today, which is half the toxic limit, and I took 1,500 tomorrow, I'm at a toxic level. That's 7 pills. I mean, yes, it's more than you want.
And there's a lot of complications when people do that. I had no idea. And when I was young, when I was in my 20s, I was drinking and taking Tylenol. Oh my God, is that bad for you? Because it's hard on your liver anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So guess one of the things that I had when I got sick, I had a very unhealthy liver, which is now completely reversed to being a healthy liver.
Interesting. Cool. Huh. So to the person that's out there going, I've been trained in kind of the standard way of doing things. I kind of, I'm listening to my doctor, and you should, we're my disclaimer, we're not a medical show here. We're just kind of giving our opinions, but
Right. And I'm not either. I'm just a health
exactly.
coach. I am certified as a health coach, but that's it.
But for me, it's the journey that I went through, is when I was younger, I was taught that doctors knew what they were doing. Doctors always had your best interest at heart. They always had, they always had the right training to be able to give you what you wanted, and you took your medication and you did it from there. And then I started questioning. We're business owners, we're used to making a risk benefit analysis. We're used to, and sometimes we'll jump and say, this may not necessarily make sense, but we feel like this is the right decision, but we want all the data that we can get. What's a good place to start? Like, where do you find a functional doctor? What
Well,
questions
that
do you ask?
one's
What
easy.
things?
There's actually an organization. You go to ifm.org, and in the upper right-hand corner, you put in your zip code, and it will pop out everybody who has the training in functional medicine. They might be nurse practitioners, they might be naturopaths, they might be medical doctors. You find one with specialties in what you're interested in, but know that that's not all they're going to do. They're going to look at the whole body because all the pieces fall together.
Interesting. And now, is this, what do I expect? Like, what is it? What's going to be different? And
One
first
of
of
the
all,
hardest things is
yeah.
most of them don't take insurance because they don't want the control. And so finding someone who does is tricky. Um, and so it took me a while before I found a functional doctor that would work with me and would work with Medicare, which is what I waited for. But when you go in, the first thing that was obvious was she didn't run any of the tests my conventional doctor ran. Whereas my conventional doctor only checked my thyroid from my pituitary to my thyroid. That wasn't where I was broken. I was broken from my thyroid to my adrenals. And so my functional doctor had a slew of tests that she ran that I don't think conventional doctors ever use or even may be familiar with. So that we came up with all kinds of things for us to look into to fix the last things in my body that I didn't know anything about. I have something called MTHFR, which means what goes in my body stays in my body. And so toxicity is a real problem for me. Well, by knowing that, I inherited that from both of my parents. That gave us a whole new approach to find out what was in there that needed to come out. It took me 5 times to get rid of heavy toxic metals. And I was born in Pittsburgh, which at the time was coal heaven and steel heaven. So I was loaded. It was like Eureka when we tested for toxic metals. I had them all. So getting them out of my body was a process that took a long time, but she worked with me so that I could achieve that. But they look at body functions differently, and they have a different knowledge base, which is unbelievably refreshing when you've only worked with a conventional doctor. But know that it's going to be hard to find one who's going to be supported by whatever insurance you've got.
I
It's
also
worth
learned
it.
I also learned myself that the MTHFR gene is activated. And it's interesting. There's a lot of studies that are saying that this gene's activation can trigger symptoms that are can trigger the symptoms that then will get you a diagnosis of ADHD, which is interesting
Oh,
that this
yeah.
was a genetic component to it. With a mom who's a neuropsychologist who really knows how they know the inner workings of the brain. And that's one of the things is there is a genetic component to it, and understanding that that's what the activation was. I have some other names for the gene itself, which we won't go into. But once I found that, I realized that this is something that really, and I did it through a genetic test. I did Ancestry, and there's a website I
Yeah,
could
we
go
did
to
it
that would do
through
it.
23andMe, but she knew how to read all the back end of the paperwork
Yes.
that I had no clue what it was.
I very, very strongly recommend that if anyone, and this is what I did, and I don't know if you'll have the same recommendation, but get your raw genetic data. It's a text file. It's about 20 megs. It's big, but what it is every single sequence they did. And then functional medicine doctors can look for those. There's tools where they can look for those
But
specific
there is
things.
another comment I want to make. I've been
Sure, yeah.
following Dr. Bruce Lipton, who is the father of epigenetics, which tells us that even though we got that blueprint in our genetics, lifestyle habit turns that switch on or leaves it off. So the fact that if you have a long history of cancer through several generations, doesn't mean you're going to get cancer, because lifestyle habits tend to also follow generations. So if you clean up and you eat clean food and you eliminate all the toxins and get enough sleep and move your body and do all the healthy things, that gene might just stay dormant for the rest of your life.
So, that's fascinating. And I never thought about that. Now that you say it, it makes a lot of sense. Where we don't just, we sometimes as entrepreneurs and as people in general, and anyone who's doing any sort of self-help and is doing the journey of helping yourself and the journey of overcoming past trauma, we don't think about the habits we picked up,
Yeah.
and especially the health habits we've picked up. And it's something that I've noticed since I was young, where it's like, you see, especially with obesity, you see the parents are obese, the kids are obese, almost 99.99% of the time. For that reason is they're picking up bad habits and going down further. So I think we keep thinking about behavioral habits as far as, being hot-headed or some other thing like that, or,
Well,
trauma that we do, but
and
it's also
even
food.
obesity, I've lost 75 pounds since I got sick without dieting. I've lost 75 pounds by eating real food. And your body, when it's only getting the chemicals in ultra processed food, wants to hold on to every little morsel you ever gave it, because it's afraid it's never going to get another one. And so once your body comes back into balance, it has done it in phases, but it just starts to release the weight. So all of that, I owned every New York Times bestseller book on how to lose weight, and all I did was gain. Now it just keeps coming off in waves. And
Interesting.
so for people who are frustrated with that, and there was one other thing about food that I had no idea. Ultra processed food snuffs out a lot of your hormones. And we have two I never even heard of, called leptin and ghrelin. They send the message to your brain that tells your brain you're full. And without those working, you just keep eating. And they build it into the food. It's addictive. That old Lay's potato chip, I bet you can't eat just one. Well, that's built in. So they build it in, and then they snuff down your ghrelin and your leptin. So I was doing things like eating a Thanksgiving dinner and then in the kitchen picking on the pumpkin pie going, how can I be hungry? I just ate this huge dinner. Well, I wasn't, but my brain never got the signal that I was full.
Hmm.
And when you start eating real food and move away from that food, all your hormones come back, including all your happy hormones. We have a problem with depression in this country because our dopamine and our serotonin and our GABA and our oxytocin are all snuffed down.
Yeah.
And so by eating real food, there are other things that turn on those chemicals as well, like gratitude and kindness. But by eating real food, that's the foundation to be happy.
See, and that's interesting. I think that's something that we're just learning about now, is just that correlation between what we eat. I noticed for myself, it's like I try to eat organic, whatever quality organic I can get, and I notice if I don't, like especially wheat jacks me up. And if there's a local chain here in Buffalo called Wegmans, which is like only in 9 states, but they're awesome. They're truly awesome. Like most of their stuff is organic. Often their generics are better than the name brands, but they have these like organic crackers, because I'll have tuna and like a tuna and egg, little good mayo, like avocado oil mayo, not seed oils. We'll get to that in a second, I think. But, and then, use that as a thing. And I liked it on crackers. And I noticed that in the middle, right after I ate, I'd feel sluggish. And then I changed to organic only, and I totally feel a difference. So it's
Do you know
amazing.
why that is? Do you know what they do with wheat? Wheat
Oh.
is something that is called Roundup Ready. So they drench it in glyphosate, which is Roundup, which we already know causes at least one cancer, which is a form of lymphoma, because they had to give us their studies from the last 25 years that said they knew it was causing cancer the entire time, but it's still being poured on the wheat because the wheat goes into apoplexy and they get more fronds that way. So they get more product by shocking the plant, and none of it gets washed off. So all that Roundup is going into our bodies, and sides means it's a herbicide. Side means it kills something. So do you really want that in your body? Because it's going to kill you eventually. No, you don't. And so I will not go near wheat if it's not organic.
Yeah. I think they call it Franken wheat, if I'm correct, which I believe is the perfect name.
Yeah. But all the sides are doing that. And conventional agriculture, it's not the only nasty being sprayed on our food. There's a whole list of them, and they're pretty frightening.
I remember right towards the end of my corporate career, I was I was at a client's office. We were ramping up a call center for a large corporation, and it was out in the middle of nowhere, Colorado. And Colorado is mostly agriculture, and we couldn't drink the water because they got their water from a water table. There was no major lakes around, and all of the not just the pesticides, but it was mostly the fertilizers they were using leached into their water table. Their water was green, literally green. It was toxic. We could not drink it. And this was, I mean, it was a huge issue. And, unless you had put that water through reverse osmosis, not like Brita, not like any reverse osmosis only, was the only way that that water was drinkable.
Yep.
I mean, it jacked up the entire cities, and they
And
couldn't
you
really
can actually get a water report from your water company and
Yeah.
see what's in your water. And it's important that you do that. I have a full health system on this house and reverse osmosis in the kitchen to cook with and drink, because the nasties in our water, and in this area, we have natural arsenic. So when we first moved in this house, I was itchy as heck. Well, it was the arsenic in the water, and that's all gone now. So, but you have to know what's in your water because it could be killing you, literally. And then you never drink it out of any kind of plastic. It
Mhm.
not only leaches the nasties that are in plastic, which are forever chemicals and you can't get them out of your body, but it's putting little tiny balls of plastic into the water, which is also going into your system and causing all kinds of problems. And then it's poisoning the earth. So we drink everything out of stainless steel.
Mm. Interesting. Okay. Huh. Either that or glass, but stainless
Either
steel.
that or glass, but glass I'm worried about because I'm klutzy and I drop things all the time.
I hear you there. I hear you there. So one of the questions that I always hear is we hear about food deserts, and especially with those folks that are on the lower end of the lower end of the economic scale, where buying organic is not always an option, or
Even
um,
getting real food is not always an option.
exactly. Now, especially with inflation and the way things are going, there's more people that are shopping at the dollar store for food. I can understand, there's, if you have somebody that is really struggling, that's difficult. What is one thing that somebody in that situation could do to at least make things better? It might not be perfect, but what's one thing they can do to make it better?
My dream is that all of the inner cities start taking the old dilapidated property and start growing food and have them be community projects. My stepson moved to Indianapolis and he bought 7 plots of land and he's growing food, and all the neighborhood kids are helping him grow the food. Our kids don't even know where food comes from anymore. I read an article that 7% of our kids think that chocolate milk comes from chocolate cows, because they're so removed from the farm. So we should be growing food as a society everywhere that there are land along sidewalks, everywhere that there are houses that have burned down. We need to start utilizing what we have. It's not going to be GMOs that feed the world. It's going to be us not wasting all the food that we waste and not wasting the resources that are available to grow food for everybody. And it's changing school food programs. There are some schools in California now that the kids are growing some of the food that are being fed to them in the school feeding programs. I pray that that happens for everybody.
Yeah. Because it makes sense, because it's not only cheaper to raise your own food. If you use some of the older techniques like canning and that sort of thing, you can now keep it over the winter, because
Right.
we're in Buffalo. We don't, our
And
growing
there
season
is
in 3 weeks.
one other new program that's just starting where doctors are prescribing real food so that people can get real food to support their body. But it has to start with them understanding the importance of real food. And there's a real resistance to that because ultra processed food is easy. You buy the box, you mix it up, and it goes on your plate. But in the long run, it costs you way more because you're subsidizing it with all your tax dollars in the first place. And then it's going to make you really sick down the line.
And it's a progressive long-term, it's
Yep.
not something that's immediate, and it's
Yep.
designed to be addictive. And I think that's the other side of it as well. It's designed to be addictive.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Well, Thank you so much for being on the show today. I really appreciate it. It has been lovely talking to you. This is something that is really I'm very passionate about. Ever since kind of going on my own journey of something didn't seem right and I wanted to figure it out. Probably about 5 years ago, I've done everything from keto to everything else. And I've had a continuous glucose monitor. I had spreadsheets galore on like all kinds of different calorie intakes, a whole bunch of other things. And going through this, especially with keto, that taught me to be very conscious of what I'm putting in my body. And I notice when I screw up.
What I don't like about keto is you don't eat enough plant food.
Yeah.
And plant food is crucial because it not only is where you're going to get your essential minerals and vitamins, but there's a whole new field that has developed in the time that I've been sick called phytonutrients. When I started, they thought there were 5,000 of them. There know way in excess of 100,000 of them. And they're there for the plant. They're not there for us, but they have all kinds of incredible gifts for us. They can shoot darts at cancer and stop it in its tracks. They can heal you in all kinds of different ways. They can make you more cognizant. And I, for one, at 75, plan to go all the way through life with my brain. So you need more plant food. And although keto is great in that it gives you plenty of protein, it does not encourage you to eat enough of all the colors of the rainbow. And I want you to eat 70% of your diet, all the colors of the rainbow. So organic.
Exactly.
Food, organic.
Exactly.
And you need the fiber desperately.
Yeah. So juicing isn't a thing. I mean, you got to have the fiber and everything else in it. Now, I mean, for me, it was just that keto was the start. It was my gateway to everything else.
Yeah, no, it's a great start.
Exactly. I lost 50 pounds. It did pretty well for me, but it also made me very conscious. And I learned, and any diet would do, any time that you are increasing the quality of your food will do this for you, is what it did is it showed me to be really conscious, because I was reading labels and I was looking at actually what was in labels and I'm going, I can't pronounce half of this.
Yeah, you can't pronounce it, you put it back.
This isn't food,
You either can't pronounce it or you don't know what it is. Things like natural flavoring is usually MSG. You put it back. You don't want that stuff on your body. It's hidden.
Yeah, exactly. And it made me really, and once I was conscious of it, that was something that really helped me out a lot. And so it really just opened up the Pandora's box of things that are going on and being a more educated consumer of what I'm putting into my body for that reason.
Yep.
So I ask every single person on the podcast, what is one book or one other podcast that has had a major effect on your life that you would recommend to other people?
Dr. Deanna Minch's The Color Code, How to Eat from the Rainbow. Was one of the first things I read when I got sick. And although everyone calls me the rainbow girl, she's the rainbow queen. She does research in all of it and is on the cutting edge of all these phytonutrients and what they do for us. So she's also valuable to follow on Facebook and get her newsletter. But her book is a plethora of information that will blow your mind.
Awesome. Good. Thank you so much, Cheryl, for being on the show today. I really appreciate it. I think this is, as entrepreneurs, we're always trying to find better ways to make our body work better for us. And there's a lot of different ways to do that. But I think this is one thing where, you can go to some extent of being a little bit more healthy, but then there's a whole nother level to it. I had a friend of mine who is a professional bodybuilder who once said that the eating part is the major part of bodybuilding.
Actually, my phrase from my experience is you can't be great if you don't feel great. Yes. So I don't care how badly you want to build your business, you've got to adopt healthy habits and take care of you. I bankrupted my body. My business was fine. But by bankrupting my body, I lost a lot of business before I sold it, but I could have bankrupted my whole business.
Exactly. So again, thank you so much for being on. I truly appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks again for joining us on the Hustle and Grind podcast. If you'd like to learn more about Cheryl, check out the link in the description.